If you own a home in Trilogy, Glen Ivy, I'm sure 2025 felt very confusing. Some reports said prices were dropping, while others said homes were selling quickly. So what really happened? Well, I just finished reviewing every home sale in Trilogy for 2025, and the numbers might surprise you. But the truth is, home sales in Trilogy were very different from what the headlines want you to believe. Hi, my name is Casey, and I specialize in helping buyers and sellers in the senior communities here in Corona, and that includes Trilogy Glen Ivy and the community of Terramore. And in this video, I'm going to walk you through what actually happened to home values in Trilogy for the entire year of 2025. And I'll show you what changed, what stayed surprisingly consistent, and what it means as we head into 2026. So let's take a look at what 2025 really told us about home values here in Trilogy Glen Ivy. But before we dive into the actual numbers, I want to talk about how 2025 probably felt for a lot of homeowners here. Now, if you watch the news or talk to people in other parts of the country, it sounded like the housing market was slowing down or actually crashing. And in some areas, that was true. But here's what's important to understand. Not every real estate market moves the same way, and not every community reacts the same to higher interest rates or uncertainty. But with over 1,300 homes, a strong reputation, and an active lifestyle, Trilogy continues to attract buyers who are looking for more than just a home. And while the headlines made 2025 feel unstable, when you look at what actually happened here in Trilogy, the story is much different. Now let's start with home values. Now when people think about a slowing housing market, they expect to see big price drops. But that's just not what we saw in Trilogy in 2025. Now the average price of a home in 2025 was $655,000. And if you compare this to prices in 2024, you'll see the average sales price was $677,000. So we did see a slight drop in prices, but that drop was just 3.2%. So rather than home prices crashing, home values actually remained relatively stable throughout the entire year. There were normal ups and downs, but no crashes and no sudden corrections either. Just consistent and steady sales that were driven by price, condition, and the location within the community. And that's a really important takeaway. Now, stability may not make for exciting headlines, but for homeowners, it's actually a very good sign. It tells us that buyer demand in Trilogy didn't disappear in 2025. Now next, let's take a look at the sales activity. Then throughout 2025, homes continued to sell at a fairly consistent pace. We didn't see any big surges, but we didn't see activity dry up either. And the actual number of homes sold in Trilogy during 2025 was 67 homes. Now in 2024, we had 63 homes that were sold. So the numbers were very similar and actually went up 6.3%. And that consistency is important because it tells us that buyers were still actively buying homes here in Trilogy. And for a community like Trilogy, that makes sense. Most buyers are downsizing or relocating for lifestyle reasons. And these buyers are looking for long-term, not reacting to short-term market swings. Next, let's talk about days on market. And this is an area where we saw the biggest changes in 2025. The average time it took to sell a home here in Trilogy went up to 63 days. And this is up from 42 days back in 2024. So it did take 50% longer to sell a home here in Trilogy. But here's what's important to remember. Homes that were priced correctly and were in good condition did sell relatively quickly. Most of these sold in less than 30 days on the market. But many homes were overpriced or needed work, and these homes sat much longer. And the homes that sat longer definitely had an impact on the average time it took to sell a home. And one of the biggest lessons we learned from 2025 is this. The housing market definitely rewarded sellers that were realistic on the price of their homes. Now before we move on, I want to ask for a quick favor. If you're finding this video helpful so far, and you'd like more insights about the 55 and older communities here in Southern California, I'd love if you'd hit that subscribe button down below. Now I post a new video every week, and it's geared towards seniors that are thinking about buying or selling a home here. Okay, next, let's see how inventory affected the housing market. And throughout 2025, Trilogy had enough homes for sale to give buyers options, but not so many that the market became oversaturated. And that balance helped support home values and gave sellers who price our homes correctly a definite advantage. Now, when I look back at the homes that struggled to sell in Trilogy during 2025, one pattern shows up again and again. The biggest mistake sellers made was overpricing their homes. Some sellers were still pricing their homes based on what their neighbors sold for a year or two ago, or based on prices when the market was at its peak. But we saw buyers in 2025 being much more cautious. They took their time and they compared homes. And they were very quick to skip homes that they felt were overpriced, even if that home was in nice condition. And some of these homes sat on the market for months, and sellers typically had to make several price reductions in order to get these homes sold. But meanwhile, homes that were priced correctly from the start were still selling fairly quickly. So the lesson here is pretty simple. Pricing your home correctly still remains the most important factor if you're trying to sell a home. And if you've watched any of my previous videos, you know I always like to share the highest priced home sold in the community. And I think most people are curious, so I always share this information so people can see what it is about certain homes that bring in the highest price. And the home that sold for the highest price this year definitely didn't disappoint. Now this home was one of the most popular floor plans in Trilogy, which is called the Palomar. Now it's one of the larger floor plans with 3 bedrooms, 3.5 bathrooms, and over 2,300 square feet of living space. But there were several things about this home that made it stand out from others. First, it had over $150,000 in upgrades throughout the entire home. So it was absolutely beautiful. It was also situated on a very private lot with amazing views. It also had an attached casita with its own private bathroom, a large open great room perfect for entertaining, and a fully paid off solar system that eliminated any electric bills. So when you hear things like, this home had everything, this one really did. And this was the highest priced home sold in the community of Trilogy in 2025, and it sold for $900,000. And this is important because it tells us that even though Trilogy has many different types and sizes of homes to choose from, there are buyers actively searching for larger, highly upgraded homes. And when these buyers find the right home, they are definitely willing to go all in. And why is that? Well, it's because Trilogy has an outstanding reputation, and it allows seniors access to all of the amenities you'd expect in an active 55 and older community. Now, what does this all mean as we head into 2026? Well, if you're a homeowner in Trilogy, 2025 showed us that even in an uncertain market, home values here remain very stable. Plus, buyer demand didn't disappear. But you have to keep in mind that buyers today are more informed and they're being much more cautious. So that means the condition of your home and pricing are going to matter more now than ever. Homes that are priced correctly and show well should continue to attract strong interest. But if your home needs work, shows sign of age, or is simply overpriced, well, you may end up having a very frustrating experience. And if you're thinking about buying a home in Trilogy, the numbers for 2025 gave us some important clues too. There is a good mix of homes currently for sale, but the most desirable homes are still selling fairly quickly. So waiting too long when the right home comes on the market can be risky. And if you miss out on the one you really like, it could be several months before another home like it comes back on the market. But overall, Trilogy continues to be a resilient, lifestyle-driven community that doesn't always follow the national market trends. But that's good news for both buyers and homeowners here in Corona. So if you're thinking about buying or selling a home here in Trilogy, I'd love to help. Just reach out at the number up on the screen, and all of my contact information is located down in the description below. Now, thanks again for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.